Ghostemane, aka Eric Whitney, is an American rapper from Lake Worth, Florida. As a kid, Ghost was mainly interested in hardcore punk and extreme metal music, with his largest influence being the black metal band Bathory. Ghost started out playing guitar and drums in punk and doom metal bands respectively. He was introduced to rap music when a fellow bandmate showed him some Memphis rap, which got him interested in the genre. He's influenced by rap groups such as 3 6 Mafia and Outkast. He has stated in interviews that Outkast is the only rap that he continues to listen to on a regular basis due to their experimental nature. Ghost also has a university degree in astrophysics. Hey, a fellow nerd. In 2015, he quit his job and moved to Los Angeles in hopes of growing a music career, as there didn't seem to be much of an audience in Southern Florida for his style of music. I follow the YouTube channel Kinda Neat, as I am a fan of the guy who runs it. Intuition and Equilibrium are a dope artist/producer combo. It was through this channel that I was first introduced to Ghostemane back in 2016 when his song Venom dropped on that channel. I was instantly drawn to it as it sounded very different and refreshing from what I was used to. But anyway, that's enough of my incessant ramblings. Let's get into the cook-up. I pulled up this piano in Nexus. We're just going to lay down a simple melody in D minor, focusing on the notes in the scale that are just one semitone apart from each other, to give it that horror movie type of vibe. I'll speed up the footage here to save time. Here's what I came up with. The piano by itself felt a little bit too basic and boring, so I added some effects. First, I applied the Isotope Vinyl plugin to detune the sample by sliding the warp depth all the way up. I'm hoping that this will add to the creepiness of the piano. I threw an EQ on there to cut the lows at 391 Hz, and to cut the highs around 10 kHz. I applied some reverb. I added a 1/4 delay. And lastly, I added some gross beat. I opened up the momentary presets, I selected half speed, and I also selected the slow down gate effect. I want to keep the tone of the piano the same as it was. Since the half-speed effect pitches everything down by 1 octave, I'm going to have to move everything up by 1 octave to counteract that. Here's what the piano sounds like with the effects added. I pulled up this texture in Omnisphere and I'm going to use it as a pad type sound. I don't know if I have the right drum kit for this type of beat, so I'm going to do what I usually do to find drum kits and just Google search for one on Reddit. This texture was in that drum kit that I found. I applied an EQ to cut the lows at 332 Hz and cut the highs at 3.6 kHz. I also added a generous portion of reverb. I pulled up another Omnisphere texture. I added an EQ to cut the lows at 189 Hz and significantly boosted the low mids at 369 Hz. I added some reverb. Here's what the texture sounds like now. I layered these 3 sounds for the snare. I laid down this kick pattern. I made this hat pattern. I laid down a cymbal. I added an open hat. I added a crash. And I made this 808 pattern. Here's what the drums sound like all together. In some of Ghostemane's tracks, he has samples of people talking at the beginning. I'm going to use this sample here.
But you must be as frightened as I am of death and godlessness.
If you choose to make this type of beat with a vocal sample, I suggest trying to find an old horror movie sample or something that talks about death or Satan. Now it's time to write some lyrics. Ghostemane's lyrics focus on 1. References to occultists or occultism. 2. His lack of respect for clones. 3. Sexual intercourse, usually with slight BDSM references. 4. Death, depression, nihilism, and suicidal tendencies. 5. The use of psychedelics. 6. Other miscellaneous devil stuff. It's also important to get the delivery right. Ghostemane has a lot of versatility and a lot of different flows and vocal deliveries. He has emo singing vocals, screamo vocals, quiet fry vocals, louder rapping, semi-screaming vocals. It's hard to list them all. I don't know if that even sums it all up. It would be near impossible for me to incorporate every aspect of his style into a single track, so I'm only going to attempt a couple. As for my vocal mixing, I added an EQ to cut up to the low mids at 472 hertz. This is significantly more of a cut than I normally would do. It's because most of the low end is going to be taken up by the bass, and I boosted the highs at 3.3 kHz. I also applied another EQ with a low shelf at 940 Hz, with a slight boost at 6.1 kHz. I added some distortion. I applied some saturation as well with this exciter plugin. I'm mostly applying it to the highs and the high mids, although there is some excitation on the mids and low mids as well. I added a 1/4 delay. I added some reverb. And if you want to see exactly how I apply these effects, check out my vocal mixing tutorial. I tend to use a lot of parallel processing rather than just throwing all the effects on a single mixer track. It's beyond the scope of this video as it takes up some time to explain properly. We also need to figure out what we're going to use for visuals. I think I'm just going to get an old black and white 1930s cartoon and link the bass and kick volume to the scale of the video and make it react to that. Then I'll overlay an unaffected layer and lower its opacity. And just a disclaimer, I'm not attempting to do an impression of Ghostemane. I'm just trying to emulate his subject matter, as well as some of his flow patterns and vocal deliveries. I do not intend to sound exactly like him, just sort of similar to him. With all of that out of the way, let's see what we've come up with.
But you must be as frightened as I am of death and godlessness.
We must die, but at the right time. Death only loses its terror when one has consummated.
Fuck that bitch.